מוכן?
קדימה, לך על זה.
שלום לכולם, כאן אייל ודודו. אנחנו מאוד שמחים, מאוד מתרגשים. אנחנו רואים את המילה מתרגשים הרבה, אנחנו באמת מתרגשים, כי הכנו לכם משהו מאוד מאוד מיוחד, שתכננו אותו כבר חודש וחצי, אייל? משהו כזה?
כן, משהו כמו חודש וחצי חיכינו, בסוף קיבלנו את ההזדמנות לראיין את ה-co-founder ומנכ"ל זאפייר, וויד פוסטר. הייתה לנו שיחה ממש מעניינת, איפה אנחנו התחלנו ולאן אנחנו הולכים, סגנון כזה וקצת בין לבין. אנחנו בטוחים שתהנו, ונקווה שנהפוך את זה לסוג של מסורת. כל כמה זמן נעשה ראיון איתו, בהתאם להתקדמות של הקהילה המדהימה שיצרנו פה בזאפייר ישראל.
לגמרי. אז חבר'ה, ממש עכשיו מתחיל הרעיון עם וויד פוסטר, מנכ"ל זאפייר, על העתיד, על העבר, על מה קורה, על איך זאפייר רואה את הלקוחות, איך זאפייר רואה אוטומציות. באמת רעיון, אני חושב שאם לא היינו מגדירים איתו זמן מסוים, היינו ממשיכים פה עוד שעה. אז יאללה, תהנו.
תהנו.
So hi everyone, we're here with Wade Foster, Zapier CEO and co-founder. Hi, Wade.
Hey, David. Hey, all. Good to meet you guys. Good to be here.
Yeah, so we're very, very excited. I think it was like a month and a half ago that it took us to coordinate this, the time slot for this. You had a pretty busy schedule. I guess it's probably related to an email we got last night regarding paths. So that was just released. That's very, that's a great a feature we've been waiting for.
Yeah, we're really excited about it.
Yeah, I know. And also, you know, actually, Eyal and I did a live on paths because we're both in the expert community, so we knew about it, I think, 2 months ago or so. So we just said, hey, we got to do a live. So yeah, that was our community is really, we like to bring in that stuff. So thanks a lot for joining us. And we're here and we kind of want to have like a conversation about Zapier and about automation, about how things are going. We have some pre-scripted questions, obviously, but I have a feeling we're going to go off script here quite a bit. So I think Eyal and I, each one of us says the word Zapier, I think about 90 times each day.
I mean, let's give you some background. I don't know if you know, but we've started an automation school here, and it's not a marketing automation school, even though it kind of touches some points when it comes to marketing. But we started teaching people about Zapier and about how to automate processes that wouldn't be possible if you didn't know code or had a developer employed in your company. And we've been doing amazing things here, and it's the third class they're running right now. Yesterday was the first basic Zapier lesson, and only yesterday we said it about 100 times, I think, both of us.
Awesome.
Yeah, so they have homework, and hopefully they'll complete it by tomorrow. They have a questions and answer webinar. So I know a little bit the story of how Zapier got started. I assume you told that story about 200 times already.
Something like that, yeah.
And I think if you can just give us some sort of brief version of the story, because what I love about it is that from what I know, Zapier was really born out of the purpose that it was meant to serve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we started Zapier, it's been a little over 7 years ago now. Brian and I were doing a bunch of freelancing in Columbia, Missouri, just in the middle of the U.S. And, you know, we would get asked from time to time to build these one-off integrations. So I remember building like a PayPal QuickBooks integration. We built a WordPress plugin, a Forms plugin that allowed you to send data over into Salesforce, that sort of thing. And, you know, Brian kind of dawned on him. He's like, wow, this kind of like this connectivity between apps is something that seems like some people need. And most people don't like messing around with these APIs, especially in 2011. You know, APIs were not nearly as nice as they are today. And so there was kind of, Brian was like, I bet we could build a thing that allows, you know, a non-developer, a non-technical person, someone who's just like curious and, you know, has a problem to solve, to set this stuff up on their own. And so we started working on Zaapier nights and weekends in Columbia, Missouri, trying to build this out for some of those early clients that we had.
That is so cool, because I think one of the amazing things that Zaapier does, I mean, I told people, listen, as far as, let's say on a technical level, Zaapier didn't necessarily invent anything new, because API integration always existed as far as APIs existed. But what Zaapier did was really bring it to the people, bring it to everyone. And I think that's amazing, because beautiful things, I think both Eyal and I see that in our work. You know, most great ideas don't come from us. They come from the customers, and they come from the marketers, and they come from the sales managers who really don't want to deal with anything technical. They just want a problem solved or want something possible.
Totally. And that was the thing that we knew was going to be critical here, was that integration had existed for a long time. Like, people could do this. People wanted to do this. You would go to the forums of these sites. You go to the Salesforce forum or the Evernote forum or the Basecamp forum or, you know, HubSpot forum or whatever, you name it. And people would say, hey, do you all have an integration with this? Can we have an integration with that? Like, people were asking for this stuff. It was just hard to build these things. Like, nobody really wanted to do it. The vendors didn't want to build these integrations. The customers wanted them, but they didn't have a lot of expertise themselves to build them. So for us, it was not a matter of like, just people want this. It was, can we make it easy enough for folks who want this to use it and to consume it? And so all of our efforts were spent on how can we make it simple and easy to understand.
I think one of the things that we realized is that Zaapier is, you know, we both come from development and programming of different types, but Zaapier is evolving into a visual programming language. That's how I experience it, because when we want to build like a piece of software, we design it. So we do a flow chart, and then we build it, and then we code it. We have to know the syntax and the tools and what we can and cannot use. And then we need to debug it, and then we need to deploy it. And really building a Zap is more of the same flow, but you don't need, you have to know, like, you remember, Eyal, yesterday we talked about the formatter, right?
Yeah.
So formatter is really wrapping code into something that is accessible to non-coders. You have to know that it exists, otherwise you wouldn't know how to add one day to the date. It really is a visual, I experience Zaapier as a visual programming language.
Yeah, and I think folks from our technical backgrounds often think of it as the same way. It's like, this is just a faster way to do a thing that maybe I already know how to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt.
So I think the first question that I want to ask you is, what is the main thing you've learned from over 1,300, is it already?
Yeah, 1,300 apps, yeah.
From over 1,300 integration, what is the main thing that you've learned?
You know, I think the thing that constantly surprises me is the creativity of what folks wanted to do. You know, I think there's this like dream scenario for software vendors that we can make a one-size-fits-all solution for our customers.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is that there's just no way you can do that, because everybody has their unique twist on what they want to do. Everyone has their apps that they, like, oh, I really like this app because it does this piece in this way. And so really doing that one-size-fits-all is just not possible. And that's why you see 1,300 apps on Zaapier, is because people want choice. They want to figure out how they can do it. They want to configure things in different ways that solve the problem for them.
Wait, Eyal, we have an iPod. Do you have maybe two, both your phone? Oh, it's okay now, right?
Now I'm back on my computer. It finally restarted. Crappy timing there, but there we got it. So
Okay.
I'm good.
So you were saying, Wade, that really that you discovered that creativity comes from the people, not necessarily from the vendors.
Yeah, I think everyone kind of has their twist on what they want to do. So you can say, you know, oh, every business, you know, wants to take, you know, leads from a website, like they have a form on their website and they need to push that to a CRM. So you could say, oh, well, we can build like the perfect one-size-fits-all solution for that. But then you start to dig into the different ways that people set up their businesses and run their workflows and things like that. And you start to realize like something that simple actually has tons and tons of different ways that somebody would want to set that up. And so you really want to to solve like the problem for the end user, there needs to be some amount of configurability, some ability to customize and tweak to meet their needs. But it has to be done in a way that it doesn't feel like you're configuring, because people don't want to configure. They want to like just have a thing that solves them problems. So if you can make that configuring, that customization feel just utterly routine, people are like, oh, this solves my problem. I want this. Click, 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 click. Done.
I can do that. I'm able to do that. I would never be able to do that if I wasn't like, a programmer with 5+ years experience in API integration. So
yeah, it's like taking something that's highly technical that they don't have any idea about what authentication processes they're going through, what headers are being sent, or anything in terms of HTTP requests that are happening unaware of their existence whatsoever. I mean, it's amazing for me that it's just like connecting two dots. It's not like of reading API documentation and dealing with changes in the API, which is another issue. We'll get to that, by the way. There's a question about that, but I'm still amazed by the amount of things you can do, and just being a part of the exports forum has given me another point of view where I can see what other experts are doing, and some of them are doing amazing things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And okay, so I think it also, what you mentioned really offloads the pressure off the software vendors, right? Because previously, like, I think in the past, the way I see it, in the past, there was like this quest for the one system to rule them all. Like one system that would do everything, and it would do CRM, and it would do accounting, and it would do email marketing. And I think when you try to do everything, you're probably mediocre at most things.
Yeah, you water things down, and it gets diluted, and it kind of ends up being just okay. All the solutions are kind of just okay for everybody, and no one's looking for like a just okay solution. Like they want something good for them.
I think one of the things we tell our clients and our students and everyone and business owners, really, we're at an age where you don't need to compromise on anything. So you can take the best CRM, and you can take the best marketing automation platform, and the best dashboards and everything, and just know how to tie everything together. And I think what Zaapier did is really enable that for everyone, right? Not just for experts.
Yep, totally. Or for people who had, could pay for really expensive consultants, or, that kind of thing. It really did open it up to kind of every type of person.
It's almost as if you only need theoretical knowledge about what you're trying to achieve, and it's possible.
Yeah, I think, as long as you kind of understand logic, and you can understand, workflow, like you can understand, hey, you can break a problem down to its kind of core components. It gets rid of all the syntax and like the technicalese, but it's like if you understand logic at its core, you can do this stuff.
Yeah. So what really is the sweet spot that makes a company a good match for Zaapier, for being a Zaapier client or a Zaapier user? What have you discovered as being like a sweet spot for that?
I think there's a lot of types of businesses that can have like a good fit with Zaapier. The main thing is, I think, one, you got to have like a product that's solving a problem. So if you're solving a problem, you're probably got a bunch of users who are trying to figure out, okay, how can I extend this solution? Like this solution is doing this piece of the equation for me. And then there's a whole other set of things that they need to pull that in with. And so if your customers are saying like, oh, I need to integrate with this, or I need to connect to this, or like I need to pull in with this, that's a sign like, hey, you're doing something pretty good. Like you solved the problem that they want to use you, and now they're trying to hook it into their core workflows. And that's like a good sign that Zaapier is going to be a pretty good fit to help you out, because your customers are already asking for this stuff. You just need to like tap into it.
So how does it work? Sorry, Dudou. I'll just ask.
It's okay. Go ahead.
How does it work in terms of developing I mean, I know the developer platform. I know I can develop my own Zaps, but do you guys develop some Zaps for companies, or it's all made by external vendors?
Most of them are done by external vendors these days. Some of the, all the earliest apps we built were built by us when we were kind of getting up and running. But these days, 99+% come through our developer platform. And so if you have an API already for your service, it's usually pretty straightforward to work through the developer platform to get your app added in and be available amongst all the other 1,300 that are on Zapier today.
And does that also mean that they have to maintain them, or do you also deal with maintenance?
So typically you'll maintain it too, but we help. We provide monitoring systems, we provide alerting. We'll give you a heads up if like there's features that are unsupported that people are asking for, all that kind of thing. So we really do try and treat it as a partnership and trying to make something really good for our joint set of customers.
I have to say, being two things. First of all, being an owner of an app, of a public app, and also a private app that I just didn't bother to go through the publishing process. So you really get like a monthly report for usage and bug requests and feature requests and what people were asking. But I have to tell you about that. I discovered Zapier. I actually discovered IFTTT in 2014, and it looked nice. It looked like something I want to play around with. But discovering Zapier and seeing that it has a developer platform on its own, that was really what made me go all in on Zapier, because I said, listen, I don't have to wait for everyone. I have an API. I have a developer platform. I can make that happen without requesting someone that they develop an app for us. So I think for you guys, did you think of that way from the get-go, that you were going to bring that to everyone?
Yeah, it was something we thought would be useful very early on. Within the first year, it was probably 9 months in or so, we built maybe, I'd say 30 or 40 apps ourselves. And we started to get requests from vendors saying like, hey, can you add a Zapier integration for our app? And I remember getting an email from the Box CEO at like 2 a.m. on a Saturday night or something like that saying, oh, why is Box not on Zapier? And well, it was just the three of us at the time. So we, of course Box should be on Zapier. We just hadn't gotten to it yet.
Yeah.
And that kind of made us think, well, if this is important to the CEO of Box, he's got like whole engineering teams that he could perhaps go faster if we provided a way for them to build into the ecosystem. And so that's when we built the first version out of our developer platform, was in 2012. So it was less than a year after we started, we had this. And it was like a really great investment because folks like you saw this and said, you know what, I don't have to wait for Zapier to get around to this stuff. Like we can do it today in a matter of days and have this done. And so that was like a really key learning for us, was like providing that sort of like open ecosystem that allowed anyone to participate in improving things for the whole.
That works so well, because I can tell you, for example, that the way actually Eyal and I think the same, we also teach our students when you want to pick a tool, first of all, we go to see if it integrates with Zapier, right? So that's the first thing. And if it doesn't, does it have good webhooks? Can we get good stuff out of it with webhooks, into it and out of it? And one of the apps that I discovered that way and really became a cornerstone for us is PipeDrive for sales. And it had a great Zapier integration, so we started integrating that with marketing workflows. But things were missing. We didn't have some things. We couldn't track deal. We had some functionality missing. And when I saw that it's really lowering our ability to provide great workflows, I just said, you know what? I'll just crack open the API and we'll develop our own app. So we have an app now called Pipe for You. It's a private app, but it's really helping us set up all the automated workflows.
That's great.
And if I had to approach, and if the developer platform didn't exist, and I had to approach the PipeDrive team and tell them, listen, this and this is missing from your Zapier app, please add it. They would say, yeah, sure, but let's talk in 3 years, because you're the first person to mention that, and we have 1,000 other requests.
Yep. And it's, you're not dissimilar to many customers who come to Zapier and they start looking through the list of apps and they say, I need a tool that does this, and they go through and try and figure out, which one of these tools is going to be the most flexible, which is going to be the one that's going to allow me to kind of work in the way that I want to work. And the tools that provide that more flexibility tend to rise to the top and get more usage and, get more customers. And the tools that are a little more prescriptive about the way they want to work sometimes lose out on customers who need those types of things. So I think, that being able to provide that flexibility and that open way to work with you is really important as a vendor to have that.
Yeah. On the flip side, I use Zaapier nowadays for tool discovery. Basically, I look for other tools that I haven't heard of, and I check them out, and I found a few cool ones just by looking at the app selection that you have. So it's kind of working both ways now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's great about the Zaapier and about this ecosystem is that, all of our partners now we all kind of get, the rising tide raises all boats. We all get to get better together. And along the way, get more customers and grow together.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding, one of the things that we see when automation really is, it has a blessing and a curse. Because I remember when I just started, discovered the world, I came from technical, automation for QA and stuff. And when I discovered the world of business automation, I first approached like my subscribers list, like with the question, okay, we can do business automation or marketing automation. What problem do you want to solve? And I would get like huge unrelated answers that I wouldn't, like I would ask, what do you want that would disappear from your business? And I would get an answer like, I don't want to market. But, you can't really automate that. But so automation is a blessing and a curse, I guess, because if you know what you want to do, and if you're aware, like you said, that how to think and how to process, how to create processes from your business, then it's really like, it's like Jello. You really can play around with it. But if you don't know what it is, it's pretty hard to explain. So how did you guys get your first paying customers when you had to, 2011, 2012, and you had to explain to people, I guess, what automation and Zaapier really is?
Yeah, we really just focused on folks who already had this problem, who were already doing things in like a really clumsy way. Like they were, exporting spreadsheets and then trying to import them into other apps. And we could say, hey, you don't have to do that every day. You can just set this thing up and move it from one app to the other automatically as it comes through. So you would look for people who are already running thriving businesses who just have a bunch of kind of like routine back office work that they're doing every week or every day or whatever, that takes a ton of time up. And so we started there and just talked a lot about like, hey, you can do this in a much faster, a much better way. And that really was like the start, was to just get rid of this work that other folks were doing. And then over time, one of the things we learned was we weren't just saving people time from doing things. Some of our users were figuring out, oh, there's new problems now that I can tackle with this tool. And I remember you sending me an email telling me about this, saying like, wait, it's not just saving time. We're actually doing stuff that we never would have done because we just couldn't do it in a way that meaningfully made sense. And I think that was one of those things that was really cool, was once you learn what automation is, you start to say, hey, remember this problem we had back then where we were like, there was no way we could do it because it would just been too expensive. Like we'd had to hire a fleet of people and there's no way it would have ever worked out.
Pay for itself.
But this piece, which was the really time-consuming piece, we can totally automate now. And so this problem this like solution we had in mind actually works if we automate this component of it. And so all of a sudden you start to see people building things that never would have existed before. And I think that's kind of like the progression users go down, is it starts with, what's a problem I can solve that I'm already doing? Like I'm already dealing with this sort of thing, and it starts there. But then as you get more comfortable with automation, you get more comfortable in this world, you start to think of new ways to use it that you never would have even considered before, which is really fun when folks get to that like aha moment, that realization.
Yeah. I think that, I tell often that automation for me is not a technical thing, or it's not a system. It's like a habit, and it's a habit of looking at your business in a certain way, because our thought always, and it doesn't matter if you're a mom and pop shop or you're corporate, you're used to thinking that someone has to do something. And if you switch that thought, if you adapt another thought, instead of someone has to do something into something has to get done, all of a sudden you don't look at it as I have to hire and I don't have the head count. I had to bring someone else, but I'm not making enough money. How can I find a way to have it done?
Yeah, I love that. It's not who's going to do this. It's how's this going to get done.
Yeah.
That's great.
Exactly. I mean, we like to look at it. We have a funny way of looking at problems when coming to a client, because it's kind of hard to convince them on how to start something. So we basically ask them the simple question of, where does it hurt?
Yeah.
And they all have an answer for that.
Yep.
A non-physical one, of course.
Sure, yeah. It's always like in my head, oh, this is painful.
Yeah, there's this YouTube video with the nail in the head. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
When we started building Zaps, that was 2014. By the way I acquired my first client for automation is that it's a company that I knew here in Israel. They were marketing eBay and Shopify courses, online courses. And I saw that they were registering for a webinar, and that on their landing page, they had Facebook comments of people saying, I didn't get the link. Where's the link? And they were answering them, no, we'll send you the link on the day of registration. And I saw that it was a huge mess. And I knew that one of the owners of that business, it was two partners. And I called him and I said, why do you have that mess? And he said, well, because we're only registering on sending them the registration, the GoToWebinar registration link on the last day, because a lot of people don't understand, and they email us and want them to register just like a minute before the webinar starts, so they immediately enter the room. And I had my app then, and I told them, and I could, through Zaapier, connect that app to GoToWebinar and automatically register them from the landing page. Now, it sounds so basic today, 2008. Yeah. It really didn't exist then. But I told them, listen, I have a solution that you don't have to do the double registration. Are we interested? And he asked me, how much will it cost? And my app was private. I had to do it on my Zaapier account, so I was paying for the test. So I told him I didn't even know, because I never imagined he would say yes on the spot. And he said on the spot. So I can totally relate to what you were saying. Like, I guess you went into forums and looked for when people were writing, oh my God, I hate copying leads from Excel to whatever.
Yeah, and I remember I had the same experience with our first customer. On the spot, he asked me, oh, this is great. How much does it cost? And we'd never thought of it before. And so I remember saying, it's $100 and that gets you into the beta. And so I just said it on the spot, and he was like, sure, great. Where do I send it? I was like, I guess PayPal?
Let me give you my mailbox at home. Send it over there. Because,
But that's how everything starts. Everything starts where you're just kind of figuring it out. It's a little bit of the mess in the early days. And over time, you put systems and process, and you automate things and make it easier for yourself.
So Zaapier now is around 125 people, right? You're pretty big now.
We're 175 actually. So it's going to be quite the crew over here.
How does that? When did you decide about your hiring remotely policy? How did that begin?
That was something that we got onto early on, where, we started as a side project. So we were used to working remotely. We worked in chat, we worked in Trello, we worked in GitHub, that sort of thing. And then at the tail end of YC, which is an incubator we went through here in the States, Mike moved back to Missouri from California to be with his then girlfriend, now wife, as she was wrapping up law school. And that kind of just set us down this path of, hey, we'll just work remotely. We're used to working through chat. We're used to working through these tools. So let's make a go of it. And so we gave it a try, and we really liked it. It worked really nicely for us. And then we realized, oh, wow, we can hire people anywhere. And that was fantastic, because now we could tap into talent that nobody else was really trying to compete with us for. And get some really amazing smart folks to come work at Zaapier and help us kind of create the future of work over here.
So I guess it's probably harder to manage a remote team than it is when people are sitting in one room, right?
You have more discipline. The things you do are still the same. You still have to set expectations with folks. You still have to say, hey, I want you to make sure to take care of this thing. You need to give them clear guidelines and things like that, but you need to do that in an office too anyway. The caveat is, in an office, you can sometimes be a bit lazy about it, where you can kind of spot like, oh, they look a little lost, or like, oh, that's not going so well. Whereas in a remote org, you have to set up systems and processes to make sure you're constantly checking in on that. And so oftentimes, we actually end up using tools like Zaapier to help us with the management of the remote org as well, too, because it's setting up systems and processes for it.
That's actually interesting. Sorry, Al.
Yeah, sorry. How often do you guys bring everybody together in one place?
We do a big all-team offsite twice a year.
Always in the U.S.?
We've done a couple in Canada now, but they've always been in North America to date.
Okay.
We'll see if that continues to be the trend. It just always, from a cost standpoint, that's always worked out best for us so far.
Yeah, you have to charter a plane to get everybody over to a different continent.
Yeah.
Well, if you change your, if you do start thinking about going to other places, Israel is beautiful and really.
Yeah, I hear it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, very nice place. We'll show you all the automation groups in Facebook, which they need
That'd
to
be awesome
to see. Yeah. So you mentioned something interesting. You said you're using Zaapier to manage, to help you manage your team. Can you give us some insight on that? Because that's something that sounds like something we would like to implement as well.
Sure. I mean, there's basic things like information sharing. So you set up little bots that will send notifications into Slack to say, hey, there's this thing that popped up. We like an outage alert. Can someone can someone take care of this outage? And they'll respond to it. Or like, this app is seeing some problems. Can someone go do some investigation on that? So you kind of route and assign tasks based on automation in that way. And then there's other like basic things like, we use this tool called Small Improvements for one-on-ones, performance reviews, that sort of thing. And every time I'm in a call or in a meeting, if something comes up where I'm like, oh, I should follow up with this person about this thing, I use a Zap with Alfred, which is a Mac desktop tool, where I'll say, I'll type in SI, and then I'll type in the name of the person I need to talk to, and then I'll type in the thing I want to talk to them about. And that'll automatically put it into Small Improvements so that when I need to follow up with them later, it's there. So, just little stuff like that where you're just trying to think of like, how can I take some mental burden off of me where like, we're all humans. We forget stuff all the time. We're unreliable creatures, and automation takes the unreliable and makes it somewhat reliable. And so I think that's where we're looking at is like, where do you need to be more reliable in your management approach? And is there a way that you can kind of replace yourself or take the mental burden off yourself to do that?
Yeah, I think it adds a lot of certainty. And it reminds me of something that a friend once told me that's totally unrelated. He said, you have these things that happen once a year. So you have your anniversary once a year, and you need to renew the car insurance once a year, and you have your kids' graduation ceremony once a year. So you have a lot of things that are all once a year. So your year is full with things that are once a year. And I think, managing a business or a team or just getting something off the ground is a lot of small details that are all equally important. And the more you can clean off that list, just make them happen instead of doing them, the more you're available for other stuff.
Totally. You want to reduce that mental burden that you have to remember once a year types of things, because there's just no way you're going to remember all the once a year types of things.
We've had a member of the community do an amazing automation for something personal that I've never thought that was possible. And I do, complex things with webhooks, but he took a simple integration with Gmail, just gets all the emails that have an invoice attached to them and saves them to a certain drive folder with the month and the company name. And everything is basically just there waiting for you instead of just downloading invoices and kind of sending them over. And so we do it for clients, and I'm kind of sorry to say that I haven't applied even what I know to myself and my business, which is ridiculous.
The cobbler's shoes, it's the cobbler's kids. It's the same way for us. Like, I used to be the best Zaapier user. I don't even touch some of the things our customers do these days. Like, I learn from them all day, every day, like, of the things that I could be doing better. It just takes that creative spark, and sometimes interacting with the community provides that. You're like, oh wow, that is a good idea. I should be doing something like that.
Yeah, I gotta say that it's pretty new here in Israel. David and I kind of joined forces, and we have this community. And 2 years ago there was no community, and now we have 1,800 people, and it's growing really quickly.
Organically.
Excellent. That's awesome.
And many people are using it, and we're also doing a kind of a meetup, I would say, mini convention here, and the first time we just published it with a little bot, and 300 people showed up. So
wow,
kind of booming here. It's kind of booming here in Israel, and I'd love it for someday if we could bring you over. We're going to work on that.
I'd love to.
I really believe that this is something that's going to be its own kind of job or category in the future. And
I totally think so.
Yeah, that kind of brings me to the next question. Let me take this, David. So both of us, we believe that every company will have an automation manager in the future. Someone who will be responsible for integrating all of the company's activities and departments. What do you think is a required skill set for such a job, such a role?
I think it will start out as like a specialized role. It'll be someone who's really comfortable with apps, who's good with logic, who has this kind of tinkerer mindset, who likes to play with things. But I would even go a step further and say that, even further down the road, this will be part of everybody's job. We used to have a job title that was called typist, and there would be a specific person in the company who does the typing.
Yeah.
But nowadays, that sounds ridiculous. Of course, everyone does typing as part of their job. And I think you think even further out into the future, I think automation will be a part of everybody's job. Everyone will have this, way of thinking about, the work and say, oh, I could do this or I could do that. It'll just be a normal skill set like PowerPoint skills or like, Excel skills is, oh, of course I can do automation. Like that's just the thing that everyone gets good at. But it certainly will take a early adopter, a kind of special few who will carve the path for most of us in the future. Will teach all of us kind of how to get better at this along the way.
Yeah, I love that analogy. Like this one, I'm going to use that.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree that for an office manager, you looking 5 years ago, you always say required knowledge Excel and Word, and that didn't exist 20 years ago because that software didn't exist. We truly think that basic knowledge for like an office manager knowing Zaapier, because otherwise really it's taking a lot of manual data off the table, or a lot of manual work off the table, allows you to really focus on something interesting. Go ask the team if they need anything, right? So you're still an office manager, but you're doing a work that a person needs to do. I think it's on your website. It says we're just people who believe computers should do all the work, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So we believe that as well. So how do you guys see the future of automation? And that will lead me to the question about what you guys have cooking for us next, right? But how do you guys see the future really of business automation? You mentioned that it has to be something that everyone will have, but give us
I think the thing that we're working really hard on is to really make it even more accessible. You asked some questions earlier about how did you get started with automation? How did you think of what the first customer should be and what should they do? Today, everyone still has to have that first aha moment, and it requires them to think about their own day-to-day. Where is the pain? What is the thing that I can solve using this tool? And it requires some thought. You have to think like, well, maybe I could use it here, or maybe I could use it here. It requires a mind shift change. And so I think for us, the big opportunity is to make Zaapier so incredibly simple and to put the use cases that make sense for the right people in front of them so that they just see it and go, I get it. And so we're trying to close that gap where someone has to think of it and try and be creative and be like, well, maybe I could use it there, maybe I could use it here, to where they can come to Zaapier and sign up and just be like, that's what I need. How did I not think of that before? And so we're really trying to close that gap from a market education standpoint to make it just so easy for people to have those aha moments.
I think one of the things that we'll probably have is the expert community you already set up. So really having like a lot of agents going all over the world who are already working with businesses and then telling the business, listen, this could be solved. I know your pain point because I've been consulting you for the last year. Now let me tell you that the problem I know you're having could be solved. Do you mean like that, or do you mean like more in an AI sort of manner?
I think both. I think both are critical because, from what we can do from an education standpoint, we have to get customers to the site and teach them. But some people don't take the time to figure those things out. And that's where the expert community is so powerful. So you all are kind of, on the forefront of a lot of these things, and you're hearing from a set of users that never even considered that automation might even be a thing that they could consider. And so you're all are great partners for us because you're able to be at the forefront of a lot of these discussions before we ever thinking about is there a way that we can do a better job of teaching these types of things to people who are coming directly to us. There's a set of people who will never come directly to us. And so that's where I think the expert community helps us with that audience a ton.
That is great.
That's amazing to me. To think of how far we've come and what's happening nowadays, it's amazing. And I saw that it's kind of becoming a standard that connecting between apps has to be made through a visual or a graphic interface, which was unheard of only 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
It's amazing.
So what do you guys have cooking for us on the platform level? I understand you're working a lot on the marketing and getting the word out. What do you guys have cooking for us on the Zaapier platform?
Well, I think from a platform side of things, we're doing a lot to help users uncover use cases. So from a recommendations engine, you use these types of tools, maybe you should go check this tool out. Maybe you should check this Zap out. These types of things might be interesting to you. So we're doing a lot to think about that kind of thing to help you uncover better ways to run your business without you having to have those creative sparks. So a lot of work is going into that. And then, of course, we're going to keep innovating on the core usage. We're going to make sure that we had the pass launch yesterday, which went phenomenally. But I'm certain that we're going to hear from lots of users yesterday, today, throughout the week saying, oh, pass is amazing. I would love it if it could do this. And so we're going to hear more of those. Yep. So we're going to hear more and more from our customers. And so we're always paying attention to those places where people are saying, this is great. Can you imagine if it could do this too? And trying to sort through all those types of feedback and figure out okay, what is the next iteration of the core use of Zaapier? Where can we make it even more powerful for folks?
You guys are a very data-driven company, right? So you bump features up and down according to how many people ask for it, right?
Yeah, we have to do that because we just get so much inbound feature requests. So we have to do a better job of understanding where is the places that really help people out. Otherwise, we'd be chasing, tiny little feature here, tiny little feature there.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure the things that we're building can help the most people out.
Cool.
That's amazing. Because usually I know from other companies it's just a matter of what the CEO and the VP of development
Thank you. Yeah.
So yeah, that's amazing. That you actually listen to clients. It sounds kind of elementary, but it goes a long way.
Yeah, customers from the get-go, they knew what they wanted. It's our job to figure out how can we deliver on that in a way that meets their expectations. And so we got to just sort through all their feedback and figure out, okay, how can we deliver on this?
Just so you know, yesterday we showed as part of the Zaapier basic course, we told them, listen, if you want to understand what Zaapier is, look, here's an API and here's a good API. So I opened the PipeDrive API reference and told them, this is a good API, a very good one. Now imagine going to that every time you want to get a lead into your CRM. No, that's what Zaapier does. It's all visual. So how do you guys stay up to date on all API changes and make sure that things don't break?
This is where the community helps us out a ton. So, PipeDrive is thinking of their Zaapier integration when they're making API changes and developments. And so we're working in collaboration with them on those updates, that sort of thing, to make sure that we're ahead of the curve on that sort of stuff. Then, of course, humans are unreliable. So sometimes we drop the ball, we have a lot of monitoring in place to pay attention to, looks like there's maybe a new API version over here. We should maybe get on that. Or looks like we're starting to see more error messages over here. We should take a look at that and see what's going on. So we have a lot of these monitoring and early detection systems in place that are trying to help us stay ahead of the curve for when APIs are being deprecated, new versions are coming out, new functionalities available, that sort of thing.
Cool.
Yeah. Also, I guess redundancy. Basically, you can refire tasks that have failed and kind of make sure you're not missing on anything. That's
totally.
Huge.
Yeah, you want to make sure that I think that's a big part of Zaapier too that people don't know about up front is that we do a lot of this maintenance work for you. So when there is inevitably some sort of outage or some sort of issue that occurs, like we have these systems and processes in place that allow you to recover from that stuff gracefully. Whereas if you're maintaining your own versions of this stuff, that's a massive headache when some of this stuff breaks.
Yeah. Okay, so wait, I think we kept you a lot more than we said we would. But I think we could go, we could probably sit here for another hour if we wanted.
Oh, certainly, yep.
Yeah. I really, really want to thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's a blast getting to chat with you guys about automation and the future of work here. I love this stuff.
Just so you know, the Israeli brain is, you can always go to the Israeli automation communities and see what people are doing to push the platform to the limit, and they're doing amazing things. That's the Israeli brain, always looking to hack things and get the most out of stuff. So yeah, really thank you for providing the platform for everyone to do whatever they want. And and I guess we'll chat in the future when
sounds great.
Future
is new everything.
Yeah, thanks
sounds
so much.
Great.
Thanks
for
being
being part of the community.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.